welcome back. Before the break, we took a look at how far White House Stokvel has evolved and the challenges they face. Still focusing on this group, our resident expert, Thabiso Masurubele, helps to dissect what steps they need to take in order to turn their vision into a lasting legacy for their children. Thabiso, before the break, we were just looking at old objectives and new objectives, because they can change over time.
Yes.
The new objective is for them to diversify and not just sticking to a savings model, but moving into investments. What's the benefit of having to make that transition or incorporation?
I think it's a good thing when you've got groups that identify the need to evolve. And evolution is a good thing. I think it forms part of what we always advise groups to do, and that is you can't have an objective and have the same objective 5 years down the line. So we always encourage groups to review the objectives on an annual basis. So the objective review process should happen annually, because as you can imagine, things change. Your requirements change as an adult. You might have been part of it, and you might have been using it to pay for tertiary fees, for instance, and then your child graduates, and then you might find that you don't need that anymore. So people are always encouraged to review their objectives on an annual basis. Coming to what are the advantages of, diversifying their portfolio, as it were, that's always a good thing, because what it does is that you lessen the risk that you have. So what you do is, if you are looking at having different income streams, it means that should you have a problem with one of the income streams, then you've got another income stream that can then balance it out and make sure that you're still meeting at least part of your objective. But one of the things, especially when it comes to issues of investment, is to clearly indicate to groups what the difference would be between saving and investing. I think that's where we find a big challenge, where people, refer to them investing, whereas they're actually talking about saving. Simply because, once you start talking about investing, this talks to a time period. So investing, inherent in investing is you're looking at a longer period where your money, you might not necessarily have access to your money. So you're looking at anything from 3 to 5 years and so on. So with a classical case of a saving Stokvel, once every 12-month cycle, you expect to get your money back. So you wouldn't necessarily define that as investing, it's saving. And one of the disadvantages that we always point out, though it's a good thing, it's got many advantages, but one of the disadvantages, I think, especially if you've got an investment thinking group, is that it's almost like if you imagine trying to build a house. You say your objective is to build a house brick by brick. And then at the end of the year, you smash all those bricks, and then come January, you start building again. This means you'll never actually have that house. So it talks to your objective. If you're saying your objective is to have, a particular wealth aspiration, something where you'll have an asset or something, but then you're breaking down those bricks at the end of the year, and your objective is to have a house. You're not going to have that house. That's why we get very excited when groups tell us about investing. We then say, right, what instruments are you looking at? Things like, what's your risk appetite? Invest also in something that you do know. Try to stick to things that you do know. So, for instance, if one of the members in this instance would have been someone who's got a shop. So they know exactly what the advantages of having a shop are. You've got someone who's in the military. They might know about companies that might be listed that sell weapons and so on. So try to invest in something that you know a little bit more about, because that then makes it easier to be able to have your input to say, I don't think this will do well, I don't think that would do well. But over and above that, the most important thing is to speak to a professional who understands this thing called investing, but not only just an expert, but someone who's credible and from a reliable institution. And that's where I think we help groups a lot to say, here's a panel of experts that we work with that can guide you through this process, and you know that it's a credible process. Remember, we spoke about there are other functions within financial institutions that people might not necessarily be aware of. So for instance, if you bank at Bank A might have someone who can tell you a bit about buying shares. So you don't have to go somewhere else to find out about buying shares. That particular service might exist at the institution that you're already using. But because people don't have access to information, they might not be aware. So, and investing is something that we do encourage for groups, and bravo to this group for thinking that way, yeah.
No, bravo indeed. And just on the subject of, having an appetite for risk, let's look at the missed opportunities as well. I think you just touched on that very well, because you have a lot of entrepreneurs here, which is very intriguing, and it seems like they are in silos within the group. So what opportunities can they create within their own Stokvel in order to bring up more entrepreneurs?
I think they've already had a good start. So what we encourage groups to do, and it's what we've done with this particular group, to say, how can they look at, when you talk about investing, you don't always have to invest in things that, might be far away. You can invest in something that you already know. So they've got members who already have businesses. So one option that they can look at is to look at which of their members has a business that's scalable. So they've got a business that's maybe a tuck shop, like one of their members has. So I know that when people talk about investment, people start talking about shares and people start talking about these big instruments. But investing also relates to if there's a business down the street that's doing quite well, but it's a relatively small business. You can then take a view that says, how do we scale this business? So how do we get it from being a tuck shop into a wholesaler? Or how do we get it from being one tuck shop into having 6 branches? And that's how this concept of franchising starts. You've got someone who has a dream. They build a particular brand that becomes very popular because of the service that they gave or because of different things, whatever trading advantage that they might have as a business. So they look amongst themselves and say, but if, our colleague has this business, perhaps we can look at how do we invest, and then get business coaches to say this business, it's turning over 200,000 Rand a month, but with the proper investment and the proper organic growth, it can actually get to, a turnover of 1 million Rand a month. But you then need a professional who says, these are the things that you need to do. You've got to have a business plan. You've got to make sure that the instruments that you're using to manage your cash flow, they can't be the same for when you were turning over 10,000 Rand. They can't be the same as when you're now turning over 5,000 Rand. And they then also have to look at, now that people are investing in your business, it's no longer your business alone per se. So you've got to start opening up your books. Whereas when you used to run your own tuck shop, you were the only investor. You could, you needed 10 Rand for petrol, you could take it and buy petrol. Now the game changes because you've got your group as investors there. So you're going to need to have certain permissions now. And the control of the resources of the business becomes different. And so these are some of the things where we guide groups to say these are the things to think about. But all of these are part of, the plan to make sure that you do invest in a business that does become sustainable and it does become profitable. Because people invest in something with the hope to get even more back. So you want to put your money to work so that you get more money back. So it's in your interest to make sure that you're part of that business and to grow it. And then everyone will grow. The business will grow. The members will benefit more. Their portfolio will diversify. It's just a plus-plus situation.
Very insightful thoughts there, Tabi. So I think in the next episode, I would like us to dive into whether succession planning is possible without females and vice versa. But as we wrap up today's episode, we'd like to invite you to contact Thai Vision Media Consultants. If you have any questions or need advice on your Stokvel or burial society, please use the contact details and social media handles on the screen. Until next time, goodbye.
This program is brought to you by Thai Vision Media, helping Stokvels and burial societies reach their goals.